All right, Alexander, we need to get back to that January 5th meeting because I think that is a meeting that will go down in history. That's a pivotal meeting. And I think that's the meeting where we get a really good understanding as to who the man, Barack Obama, really is, the president at the time.
Yeah.
And those people who were surrounding him at that meeting on the 5th. President Trump, U.S. President Trump, gave an interview last week to Fox Business Network. And President Trump said this. He said, "This is the greatest political scam hoax in the history of our country, and people should be going to jail for this stuff. This was all Obama. This was all Biden. These people are corrupt. The whole thing was corrupt, and we caught them. We caught them. And what you saw just now, I watched Biden yesterday. He could barely speak. He was on Good Morning America, and he said he didn't know anything about it. And now it just gets released. After he said that, it gets released that he was one of the unmaskers, meaning he knew everything about it. So he lied to your friend, George Stephanopoulos." Alexander, I think that's launched kind of a war of words between Obama and Trump, which we're now seeing. I mean, we're seeing Obama doing a lot of media gigs, or at least leaking a lot of media talking points. And, he's criticizing Trump now quite openly. And Trump is firing back. And we said this during a live stream 2 weeks ago, that this is where actually Trump needs to be.
Absolutely. Indeed, he does.
This is where Trump shines now.
Yes.
And it seems like he was watching our live stream and took it to heart. At least I like to hope that he was watching our live stream and took it to heart, because when he's dealing in this type of stuff, this is where he shines. And,
I completely agree with that.
Go on, Alexander. Get to that January 5th meeting, and also get to the war of words between Trump and Obama.
Yes, can I just make one important point about Obama? Notice that the one thing he hasn't done is subjected himself or exposed himself to a proper, detailed interview by an adversarial journalist who would actually take him through step by step what actually happened at that meeting on the 5th of January. So he's saying things which are in many cases wrong, but he is not exposing himself, as Trump, by the way, regularly and often does. I mean, he has pressers, he has whatever you like. Trump does expose himself to that kind of questioning. Obama doesn't. Now, let's get back. Before we discuss the 5th January meeting, let's remember what was going on. That there was surveillance by the FBI, Pfizer abuse, that there was this extraordinary entrapment of Flynn, the things that were just off the scale. Now, a point which was made by Jonathan Turley, who is one of the wonderful lawyers in this. Imagine if all of this had been going on in 2008. If George W. Bush and Dick Cheney had been presiding over an administration that had been carrying out surveillance of Obama's campaign based on research obtained by John McCain's campaign. I mean, the Democrats would not stop talking about this, and they'd be right to. This, however, did not happen. George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and John McCain never did anything like that in 2008. Obama did. And what did he do? Now, we come to this meeting on the 5th of January. We've learned more. There's been a letter which I've seen now, the text of a letter. I'm not sure whether it was published before, but it dates from February 2018 by Senator Grassley and Senators Lindsey Graham, which was addressed to Susan Rice. Susan Rice was Obama's national security advisor. She was at this meeting on the 5th of January 2017, this famous meeting, and she was the person who, just a few minutes after Donald Trump was inaugurated president of the United States, concocted this extraordinary email in which he supposedly provided an account of what happened at this meeting. So Grassley and Lindsey Graham wrote to her and asked her various questions, which she apparently has never responded to. But one of the things that was confirmed to me in this letter is that it turns out that unquestionably, this letter confirms that Obama did discuss the Steele dossier with Yates and Comey at this meeting. So they discussed the Steele dossier. They discussed Flynn. There's clear evidence now. In fact, there's overwhelming evidence. In fact, the Justice Department accepts essentially that there was an attempt to entrap Flynn and that the investigation of Flynn was not legitimately predicated. This letter by Grassley and Lindsey Graham also appears to confirm that Obama did discuss the Logan Act with all of these people. I don't think this is disputed anymore. So let's take a step back and think about it. We have an investigation of Flynn that is insufficiently predicated, so the Justice Department says. We have a legal theory based on the Logan Act, which is wrong. We have a decision to tell Trump on the following day about the Steele dossier, but not about the fact that his national security advisor, Flynn, is being investigated. All of this puts Obama center stage. We also know that Obama's aides are unmasking people left, right, and center. We know, by the way, that Biden was also doing it. We know that Biden was doing it. We know that Susan Rice was doing it. We know that Samantha Power was doing it. Very improper. Did Obama break the law? Now, I've been looking at this. I've been looking at sort of legal positions because I know a lot of people have been saying that Obama, even if he acted very inappropriately and wrongly, he didn't break the law. I am not so sure. Firstly, he obviously can't be impeached anymore for what he did because he's no longer the president. But I would have said that if he instigated a criminal investigation of Flynn, which was not legitimately predicated, which is what the Justice Department says it was, then that would certainly have been an impeachable offense. Impeachable offenses happen where there has been misconduct. Misconduct of public office in England, under the common law of England, is a criminal offense. A public official who misconducts himself in public office can be prosecuted. Not always, but can be prosecuted if it meets certain criteria. I would say that in this case, those criteria would be met. Is there any equivalent offense to misconduct of public office in the United States? It's a common law offense in England. I suspect the answer is that since the common law also applies in most of the United States, it applies in the United States also. To be precise, I suspect it applies in the District of Columbia, where this conversation took place, in Washington, D.C., in other words. And I suspect that there is an arguable case that Barack Obama, if he did what we're all suspecting, broke that law when he did it in Washington, D.C., under the local law of the District of Columbia and of Washington, D.C. Would you get a jury in that part of the world to convict Obama on that charge? Most unlikely. But there is another side to this, which is that, of course, there is also a completely different civil law. This is the civil law, federal civil law. And I was looking at this, and there is, in fact, section 1983 of the US Code that makes it a civil wrong for a public official to act in a way that violates someone's civil and constitutional rights. And there is case law that says that starting or instigating a criminal investigation which has no legitimate legal predicate is a violation of Section 1983. That is a civil wrong, not a criminal offence, but it can be, so as I understand it, sued or proceeded with in the federal courts of the United States. And Flynn, it seems to me, as the victim of that illegally or wrongly, illegitimately predicated investigation, if he can find out that Obama actually instigated it, he would have a potential and significant civil claim against Obama in the federal courts of the United States. So there we are. I think there is a criminal offense, but it's probably a local offense. I doubt, as I said, you'd get a jury in that part of the world to convict Obama of it. But I personally think that it does apply. And then there is a civil wrong, which I think definitely applies, and which I think Flynn could certainly invoke. Civil wrong, criminal offense, both are breaches of the law. So I think Obama did break the law.
Well, there's no doubt that Obama was up to all kinds of no good. So you can start there. And
yeah.
You know.
Well, they both relate to misconduct. Misconduct of public office, as I repeat again, an impeachable offense beyond any question. I mean, this isn't picking up the telephone and having a chat with a foreign leader in which you talk, theorize about various things, which is what Trump did. I mean, that wasn't any kind of misconduct. This is clear misconduct. You have the director of the FBI there. You have the deputy attorney general of the United States there. If you are egging them on, if you're saying to them, you're creating a scenario where these two people go off and carry out an investigation, which they would not have done if they hadn't had encouragement from you, and you are the president of the United States, I would say that was misconduct of your office. Can I also remind you of something else, Alex, just before we finish with this? The Democrats tried to, one of the things that the Democrats and Mueller tried to impeach Trump for was obstruction of justice, because they said that Donald Trump tried to stop Comey pursuing the Flynn investigation and tried to do various things to obstruct Mueller's investigation of the Russiagate conspiracy theory. Now, there's no reality to that. But if Trump is supposed to have been committing obstruction, if you argue that through these passive statements, asking people not to do things, that's obstruction of justice, then surely encouraging people to do something which is wrong, which is what was going on. In other words, a positive action, encouraging them to conduct an investigation which was illegitimately predicated, that would seem to me to be a much more clear case of misconduct and therefore a violation of the law. So it's a bit complicated. It's a bit of a legal theory, but I think it's fairly well founded. Lots of questions to ask. But I would say, based on my reading both of the laws of the United States and of the common law, there is a strong case that at that meeting on the 5th of January, Barack Obama broke the law. Mm-hmm.
Well, I got really just one question for this video, Alexander. One comment and one question. The first comment is listening to you. I think there's no doubt we can say there is with certainty that standing at the top of the hill, pushing that snowball of a soft coup down the hill was Barack Obama. He's the one that egged it on. He's the one that nudged that ball down the hill and the thing picked up.
Yeah.
so much steam and a life on its own that it derailed the United States for the better part of 3-4 years, and really threw a wrench in Trump's presidency for 3-4 years. And there's no doubt that the person on the top of the hill, and maybe there were other people there like Hillary Clinton and other people also behind the scenes, but Obama definitely pushed that ball down the hill. That's the first thing. And the second thing is 2018, Lindsey Graham and other U.S. Republican senators, they knew what was in that Rice email that she sent to herself. They knew what that whole document says. That's 2018. Today is 2020. So what the hell were those Republicans doing? Because I'm starting to think that, with the exception of, say, Jim Jordan or Nunes, some of these guys who are in the House of Representatives, that Trump really didn't have many friends throughout this whole process as it was unfolding, including the Lindsey Grahams and these guys. I think that's now becoming obvious. He did have friends. I think most of them were in the congressional side of things, and I think we can name them pretty much on one hand. I named Jim Jordan and Nunes, Matt Gaetz. Those are the people that have Trump's back. The Grahams and these guys, I think, were playing both sides of the fence.
I think that's exactly what they were doing. I have to say, the more I read about this, the more I go through all of this, the more I go through go through all these transcripts and all these documents. It's quite astonishing to me that what was going on was allowed to go on for as long as it was. I think that, do you remember, this was the time when all of these Republican grandees were saying that Mueller should be allowed to complete his investigation. And they knew he wasn't investigating anything because they knew that there was nothing to find there, because they had all these transcripts in which all of these people were coming along and saying, well, I had absolutely no evidence. I never saw any evidence of collusion. Susan Rice, all of these people, what's her name? I can't remember, Farkias or whatever her name was. All of these people come along and admit to them there's no evidence of anything. So why are all these Republican grandees coming along and saying that Mueller should be allowed to complete his investigation? And at the same time, they have all of this evidence of malpractice all over the place. Why are they not talking about it? Why are they staying silent about all of this? And I am beginning to wonder, actually, about what kind of friends Donald Trump had in Congress. It does seem to me as if certainly some people in the Senate were trying to play it both ways. I can't really see any other explanation for this. I wonder, to be honest, about some of the people in the House of Representatives also. But where was the Republican leadership in the Senate when Donald Trump needed it? They were all coming around saying, let Mueller finish his job. What job? They knew there wasn't one. Doesn't make any.
They knew all the time.
They knew all the time.
They definitely knew since 2018. They definitely knew.
I think they knew before. I think they knew from about October 2017 when it became known that Steele had been paid by the Democrats. They must have known from that point on that there was no reality to this affair. And they certainly knew by mid-2018, well before, a whole year and a half before the investigation ended, that even the CrowdStrike report about the Russian hacking, which is the starting point of the whole thing, had no real fundamental evidence behind it. So what were these people up to? It's very, very disturbing, and I think it's a good question to ask, and we should really ask these people to explain themselves more clearly, because quite apart from Donald Trump, the United States has been through a nightmare as a result of all of this.
There's the argument that, there's some sort of, I don't want to say, for lack of a better word, a gag order, or maybe there's some legal reasons why they couldn't speak up about it. But let's say there is. My question then becomes, Alexander, why couldn't they just then leak it to Tucker Carlson or Hannity or Laura Ingraham, Fox News? Like the Democrats do all the time.
All the time. Well, first of all, I don't think there was a gag order. That's the first thing. I don't see why what prevented Lindsey Graham coming along, or Grassley coming along to the TV studios and say, I have seen evidence which proves conclusively that there was no collusion. I don't see what prevented them from doing that. But let's assume that there was a gag order. Quite right. Why not leak? I mean, the other side were doing it. Other side were doing it all the time. I mean, to be very, very clear, and despite what you hear people say, Mueller was doing it. I mean, you only had to read what the media was writing, and we can now track almost exactly the various stages in Mueller's investigation with what parts of the media were writing about it at the time. Clearly, there was a great deal of contact going on between Mueller and the media. All this story that Mueller kept the tight ship wasn't true. It simply wasn't true. So, as I said, the other side were doing it. Why weren't the Republicans doing it? I think these people have some very serious questions to answer. And to come back to your other question, it is impossible, in my opinion, that any of this could have happened. Any of this could have happened without Obama himself being fully in charge. I mean, there comes a point when the build-up of evidence is simply too great. And I think with the disclosure that there was this meeting on the 5th of January 2017, which we've only learnt about, again, the Republicans knew all about it from mid-2018. They knew that Obama had this meeting with Sally Yates and Comey and Rice and Biden. But we didn't know about it. But now that we know all about it, I think that we've reached the inflection point, if you like. We've reached the tipping point. It now becomes very clear that this isn't a story about Donald Trump anymore. It's a story about Obama and what he was doing. What did the president know? When did he do it? When did he know it? What was he doing with the various people he was meeting at that meeting? And what was he doing before that meeting? And in my opinion, we have to start with the possibility, which is what I've discussed in this video, that at that meeting on the 5th of January 2017, Barack Obama, President of the United States, constitutional lawyer, professor of constitutional law at Chicago University, graduate or postgraduate at Harvard University, broke the law.
I think
now I'm not. I want to make it very clear. There are questions. He may have defenses. I'm not saying he doesn't have defenses. He may be able to prove his innocence, but there is, it seems to me, at least cause for inquiry here.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much known about Obama's past, to be honest. I mean, I must admit that Obama has always been the type of person that's operated in the shadows. At least that's my impression of him.
Exactly.
And this whole thing got me thinking that it wouldn't be out of character for someone like Obama, who, his past kind of what we know about his past work was this activist community organizer, guy that kind of came out of nowhere. This doesn't surprise me at all that he would, operate at this level to try and subvert the next incoming U.S. president, instead of, sticking to tradition and kind of having a very orderly and professional handover of power. It wouldn't surprise me at all that Obama would try to derail his successor, especially that being Trump.
No,
it kind of fits into the mold of what little we know about Obama's past.
Well, that's right. Can I just say what one possible explanation to all of this, these events on the 5th of January 2017, is, you remember that back in December there'd been all those attempts to try and get the Electoral College to change his vote, and I wonder whether that was the first attempt was to try and get the Republican electors to change their votes, and that didn't work. And so they were getting more and more desperate, and they were looking for something else to stop the inauguration happening, to stop Donald Trump becoming president. So then you set up the situation with Flynn, then you get the Steele dossier out in the news. And then when that doesn't work, and on the day when Trump finally is inaugurated, they have to try somehow to draw a cloak over all of this. So they get Susan Rice to do that memo. I mean, that's a possible construction of what happened. But, the whole thing has a rather desperate look about this. And coming to what you said about Obama's been always very careful to hide the traces, to keep things to keep his tracks hidden. So the very fact that he had a whole meeting, apparently it was a very long meeting, but a meeting of some kind. Well, a meeting in the Oval Office with all of these people, with Biden and Comey and Yates and Rice there. Notice an interesting group of people. The very fact that he brought them together and spoke to them, that actually is him being in some ways less discreet, less secret than he usually likes to be, which suggests to me that they were really doubling down. They were really urgency was beginning to build at this point, because they had the inauguration coming, and it was just a few weeks away. So that's how it looks to me, certainly. And by the way, I've been saying this for years, long before Russiagate. I've been saying this even when Obama was president. I think you've been saying it too. I know you have been saying it. Obama is a very manipulative individual. He likes to do things behind the scenes. He likes to pull the strings. He doesn't like people to see what he's up to. But as I said, on this occasion, perhaps because, as I said, the clock was running against him, he let the curtain, he lifted the curtain just a little, and we now see what happened at this extraordinary meeting on the 5th of January 2017, about which we still have many questions to ask and need to have many more answers.
Yeah, there's a lot of redactions in that Susan Rice.
Absolutely. One of them is
those redactions.
All we've seen so far are a few sentences. We haven't seen the whole memo.
Yeah.
But as several people are now pointing out, I think we pointed it out in an earlier video. Why does Obama need? Why, according to Rice, does Obama need to tell the FBI to go by the book? Doesn't the FBI always go by the book? I mean, isn't that in itself, in some ways, a very revealing phrase?
Yeah, well, even the best criminals slip up every now and then.
Of course, that's how they get caught. Every criminal, in the end. I mean, you can only stay in this so far. But as I said, I think that you can investigate this. You can investigate this on the basis that there is at least a presumptive case that the President of the United States at that meeting on the 5th of January broke the law. It might have been a criminal offense, it might have been a civil wrong, it might have been both at the same time. You've got enough evidence of what happened to treat that as a starting point for a proper investigation, which would include, of course, coming back to the very first point I made at the start of this video, coming along and having an interview with Obama in which he's actually asked questions about what happened at that meeting, which is the one thing he doesn't seem to want.
Yeah, I think, 2 points to wrap it up. We've been going for a while. 2 points. Number one, yes, this is all about Obama. It's not about Trump. This is now Obamagate. And the second point is Trump and the Trump White House and the people close to Trump really should reflect on the fact that senators like Graham and Trey Gowdy and a lot of prominent Republican senators, they knew what was going on.
Absolutely. I mean,
that gives one pause.
It should give them a lot of pause, and they should think very hard, and they should understand that what do they say? You keep your enemies close, and you keep your friends even closer, because frankly, doesn't look to me as if Donald Trump really had that many friends.
Yeah, it just goes to show all those hearings, all the congressional testimonies, the Republicans, questioning Mueller and all that stuff. It really shows that we were played on both sides, Democratic.
We were being played. I mean, as I said, I so well remember all those Republicans coming along saying, wait until Mueller finishes, he completes his investigation.
He's a man of integrity. He's
a man of integrity. Let's let him finish his report. And they knew by February 2018, at least, probably earlier, that he wasn't investigating anything because there was nothing to investigate. And they let the United States go through all of that, and they exposed a Republican president heading a Republican administration to all that also. So, begs a lot of questions.
Lindsey Graham could have gone to Trump and said, this is everything I've seen. I'm telling you. He could have done that.
Well, of course he should have done. Of course he could.
And Trump could have tweeted about it.
They should have all said
it.
I mean, of course they should have said. I mean, there were ways to get this out. They weren't used. Why weren't they used? We need to know the answers to that too.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much. Guys, hit that like, hit that share, subscribe to our channel. Please donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and subscribe star. Look for us on SoundCloud and iTunes. And also go to the Duran shop. We'll keep this one short, Alexander. We've been broadcasting for a while now. So go to Duran shop, pick up some merchandise. We got all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah, no, I was absolutely amazing stuff. Our amazing Duran mugs. I would not have been able to get through all this legal stuff. I mean, the amount of reading I've had to do over the last 24 hours to try to get on top of this whole business with Russiagate has been extraordinary. So you can imagine how many cups of tea I've been drinking from this magic mug. But there is no better magic mug in the world to drink from than this one. And we have our amazing magic mugs. And let me remind our viewers, we also have our amazing shirts, all 100% cotton. All of them are stylish and magnificent with the double-headed eagle of the Duran on them. We've got polo shirts. We've also got short-sleeve T-shirts like the one I'm wearing now. We've got long-sleeve T-shirts. We've got V-neck shirts, all of them great. And our polo shirts are fabulous. And we've also got hats, hoodies, and stickers. And we've got ebooks, including an ebook on Russiagate, by the way, which is actually very interesting, and it points to many of the things that we've been talking about here, but which we need to go into more detail. We obviously need to develop now because we wrote it at a much earlier stage in this matter. We've got ebooks on Russiagate, on Ukrainegate, on Brexit, on Epstein, and also on the oil crisis. You can find them all in our shop. You support us by going to the shop. We need your support because, well, where else do you hear this kind of analysis? And obviously YouTube, or some people, may not everybody there, don't like the fact that we say these things. So come to our shop, support the Duran. Alex will tell you how.
Just go to theduranshop.com. You'll find the link in the description box down below. Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.